Hello everyone, how are you doing? How are you doing? And that's the point that we're talking about here. D&D, kind of a bit of a impromptu guide to Strahd. And there's one person I know who was kind of asking me because he wants to run Strahd, and I thought I'd lay out a few things for him, which I'll lay out in front of all of you too. And that way you can all kind of see it. I ran Strahd. It took about a year, and some thoughts and some resources that I used. I expanded it greatly when I ran it. It went down really great. Um, it was just like by the end, I was just really, really tired and kind of just wanted it to finish. So some of the things I could have pulled back on, but I mean, I wanted like the travel to have a bit more oomph to it and a bit more detail and things like that that isn't necessarily filled in such a way. So I've got my Google Drive account open in front of me to sort of inspire me in this, and some of the things that I looked at, not necessarily used, but just looked at in that sense of where you can arm yourself with the vibe of the setting, even though it's not going to be something directly that the players will interact with you on. I find that the more you know about the thing as the GM, the more you can ultimately say, like, uh, well, the more it will inform you to the things you do in other things you do. So it's indirectly. So you could get hold of things like the old D&D guides, like Van Richten's Guide to the Mists, for example, or the Ravenloft guys, Mask of the Red Death, and the Gazetteers, and those really old things. There's even a couple of Ravenloft adventures which I wouldn't mind coming in and like running at some point with like a Return to Ravenloft or some sort of deal like that, because all the players really loved it, and Guide to the Shadowfell and stuff like that. You can really do that sort of thing. One thing that was really got exciting, and I didn't implement it from the beginning. I said, right, from here on out we're using this, so it didn't get tired. Was the Tarokka deck inspiration. So there's a PDF. See, a lot of these things are going to be like available at Drive Through RPG, or wherever your source of these kind of things are, and some are really good. And I found the Tarokka deck inspiration was really good. Um, that was one where usually the GM will hand out inspiration to players for certain things in D&D, and it gave them another use for it. So these things where, like, yeah, the inspiration to activate effectively a Tarokka card, you basically would draw a Tarokka card from the deck or roll on a chart or whatever, however you're doing it, roll a D54, is it? Whatever, cards, deck, chart thing, whatever. The players really enjoyed that. The diversity of all of that. As the campaign went on for them, they found it was really, really difficult for loot. So they ended up kind of getting very complaining a lot about, we're not in the places where we're not getting a lot of loot upgrades and blah, blah, blah. So only because Adventurers League had done it, I implemented the Adventurers League Jenny Greenteeth stuff as well, so that they had access to her as a vendor to be able to conjure up some things from her magic box and this sort of deal, which, it souped them up in power quite a lot as well, to be honest, which it's a dangerous thing to do, to soup them up in power, because it makes them very imposing, especially for an end boss showdown, when a party at, say, a level 11 that they'd be when they meet Strahd, have a completely overbalanced action economy that they're now going to bring against Strahd, or indeed any wizard or caster, and ultimately any boss in a fight. And you know, for the actual Strahd battle, I wrote some extensive notes down, ideas for, because the first thing you want to be looking at is Strahd's magic spells list. You want to just nix that for the final battle. I mean, that's kind of his going about day to day kind of spells that he's memorized. That's his kind of going to pop down to the co-op, going to get some groceries, obviously put his mask on first, and, you know, use his bit of alcohol gel, go on into co-op. And those are the spells he's got on him for his day to day. But when he knows the party's coming, and of course he knows the party's coming, he's Strahd, and you know, you've run him and multiple times as a reoccurring villain that's bullied them and harassed them and played mind games with them all the way throughout. He's the strand that keeps reappearing. Even right from the beginning, I had him appear right outside of Death House and start offering them crap, you know. And you know, it was a case of just choose whatever spell list you like at that point, because he's got extensive knowledge, he's got access to amazing libraries, he's been to Amber Temple, he's had access to the spells and books and all that from there, and, you know, kind of just choose what you think at that point. It's not like he's a full caster anyway, so he's not going to be disgusting, but yeah, you know, choose what you think. And the way it just happened to work out with my group is that they happened to piss off the Lich and get a situation with him, and then it was like a situation with the Lich being able to team up with Strahd, and were able to start like combining spells and things. So it was like the showdown that happened sort of in the and moved, I might add, you know, around the castle. And they first sort of met him for part one of the battle, and that was at the big tower thing with the big stairs that spirals up all the way to the top. So there, it's all about tactical usage of spells. So he would have pre-planned all this, you know, where can I meet them for this running battle through the castle. And it would be a running battle because he'd be using all of his abilities and things to like open doors and lock them again and move on, or just move through walls and do all this kind of stuff to basically get away and regen and stick other things in their path and turn it into they're basically chasing him, trying to kill him, and he's leading them through the mousetrap, which obviously the trap elevator is a huge part of for the Strahd, that cat and mouse game, if you want to play it that way. And you ought to, really, because, you know, just a dude in a room that you just pound on, he's just going to fade away, and it's not going to be very satisfying. It was a very difficult fight for my players, Strahd. They got through it by the skin of their teeth. Yeah, really bad. And yeah, that sort of tactics anyway, you know, with the big high area coming back to that, you know, the tower, and, you know, it's open in the middle and the players are standing there. So it was just the reverse gravity spell one, you know, pop that on them and just let them fly upwards for ages and ages and ages with no gravity anymore. So whoop, up they go. And of course, you know, you animated swords and things like that they're gonna like go through and smacking into stairs or whatever. And then of course this, you know, you could combine that spell with another spell, some sort of AoE thing or some other effect up there, and then just take it off and let them fall and take the full damage and let that smash them, and, you know, really mess with them. Get creative with Strahd, yeah, because he's a mastermind anyway of himself. I added all these other little things into the world. I added these freaky, scary statues. I managed to grab a file of the things, horrible looking things. You could just start like Googling in, getting all these images, and that's them. You know, hey, there's this thing off to the side, and you randomly see this. It's like, I tell them they're seeing this horrible statue. It's just some nasty things, creepy things, you know. A statue of a guy, you know, with a sword, and he's chopping his own head in half, and the two bits are going like that. And there's some sort of conceptual art of some kind, but you know, it just really fits to create that theme for Barovia. I made a few one-off creatures and took some things here and there, created some extra kinds of vampires, used some vampires from the from some other files. There was like the vampiric blood mist type of ones, and the ones that were based on the berserkers in the area, the most powerful kind of ones. Another thing I would say is to make really actually make use of Death House. Don't just start them at level 3. Death House is incredible, and I think that it is criminal to miss it out. And I wouldn't have wanted to be one of your players if you'd have missed it out, if you were the GM. In hindsight, you know, Death House, it's very, very difficult, really hardcore, and it's so good, it's almost better than the rest of the campaign. I mean, the campaign's pretty amazing, but it's a very different, its own kind of amazing, with that real kind of focused kind of feel to it, the exploration and the whole thing, and it's just great to run. And there's very deadly encounters in there for the levels that people are at, which makes it scary, of course, as well, because that really is a sweet spot to run if you get it right, that level 1 to 3 sort of business. Yeah, you know, loads of other files that you should look at. I made some of them available to my players. They didn't necessarily use them, like a new race I made available for anyone that died and wanted to, you know, come in with a new character. I made the Mistborn race. I took steps to, well, used the Mistborn race that someone else had done, you know, created from the mists. Did a got them to roll second characters and started a second narrative arc for some other adventurers that had been taken as kids, and that was run for I don't think I've got it in front of me, but an adventure where it was like one of the hags had taken them and under her pie shop, and yeah, the kids were basically locked up in cells and they need to escape. So this is all the adventurers as kids. So I started a kind of a B team, if you like, of characters, and told the story of like a prequel of them trying to evade this witch and escape her, and all that whole deal. And I used the adventure that's also on there. You can look it up. It'll be under the whole, you'll see it amongst the Strahd stuff, and it'll be the pie shop one, the witch one. That fit perfectly, and it set off the B team nicely, which was needed, because the B team were able to kind of narratively work against the witches too. And when the hags got sort of split off, and the B team were able to try and chase them down and go after them too and finish them off in their own way. So there's 2 separate narrative arcs, and the leftovers of the B team that got destroyed managed, you know, would then be able to join the A team of the leftovers of them that get destroyed. And notice I talk about in terms of leftovers that get destroyed, because there's some deadly places here that could kill off swathes of your characters. So you're in the position to be able to say, you have an alt already, it's in the world, we know why it's here, now we just kind of have them meet the group so you can carry on with that character. And yeah, they're like leveling up in their own set. So I guess it went on longer from that sense as well, because I was running the B team with their own little things that were going on, and they experienced some elements of it and then some additional elements of the world as well. It was really, really that deep. Really make use of the dinner scene when Strahd invites them to dinner and gives them the invitation for which wine they're going to drink, the red or the white, which is a really critical decision, because the red or the white is the answer to it. You need to make notes as to which players got the red or white meaning for which, because they aren't all the same, for whether they're saying yes or no, because he's messing with them. So they can see some people are definitely going to be, almost definitely going to be taking a different drink colour to the one they've just drunk, meaning, oh, okay, so that colour for me meant yes, so you're saying no, so we're going to be opposed later. Whereas for that player, the offer he's made them to join him could actually mean, you know, secretly join him in the long run. Could actually mean, no, I'm not going to, or it could be the same wine to mean no. It could, you know, because he's messing with them. Your choice secretly is red means yes and white means no. And, you know, so you need to keep track of who that went to each player. And I handed that out as post-it notes with it on, and then they basically just they just tell me which wine they're drinking, and I make a note of it, like tick off the yes or the no for that player kind of thing on my secret sheet. It was all very much like passing notes secretly. We were able to play in person before all this nonsense happened. Yeah, I've had a list written down for mental reactions to trauma, additional stuff like that, kind of stuff that had been used for Cthulhu, if you want like ongoing things. I took a look at the Haunts PDF that I managed to get hold of, a little bit of incorporating that so you can flavour and colour some of the places. Argynvostolt in particular is a very empty place that you might want to fill with some things like that. Put a little bit of colour in some of the rooms and such. I added some extra random encounters, my own kind of ideas. That's some of the stuff that, you know, bulked up the travel. We've got another official file here. Well, official third-party player-made, bought one, not by me. It's what I mean by official. Encounters in the Mists, it's called. There's the Curse of Strahd Potions PDF I got hold of. I grabbed another Call of Cthulhu Insanity list. What did I do? I wrote my own little write-up of Amber Temple offers and sort of expanded on that a bit. Yet the Adventurers League file, of course, got that so that I can put that additional content in. Additional room encounters for Curse of Strahd file, I got hold of that. The Sean McGovern a guide to Curse of Strahd, I made use of that. Some of these GMs that have put things in, they aren't always terribly helpful and accurate. So and some of them will contradict one another on these kind of like guides to Strahd. And you end up sort of doing your own way. And I've seen some GMs have done things certain ways, and I haven't liked the look of them personally. So again, it's sort of like, well, I'm glad I did it my way, the way I wanted it done. Borrow and use the best of what you wish. So if you found that file, for instance, you might like take an idea from it or a couple of bits and say, yeah, that's going to work for Strahd here. But some of the other stuff you're saying, I don't think actually really works. Yeah. I got hold of another little adventure, and this was like the B team that ran it. It was a homebrew mini adventure for 4 PCs called House of the Dead. I ran that as like a little sub adventure. That was because as I said, I needed to, you know, expand the B team out of it as well. So I think that was a B team mission, for example. And there's a few files. A Curse of Strahd expansion. There's that one, the Heart of Darkness. I looked through that, and some extra like Paladin oaths. I grabbed hold of, like Oath of the Sin Eater and things like that. Matt Mercer sort of made use of him a fair bit, and some of his add-on expansion stuff. I grabbed the Lingering Soul expansion there to use for anybody that ends up dying and doesn't get a pact. So instead they can kind of be a ghost, and you wouldn't necessarily overdo that, but maybe one or two get a pop at doing that at most, maybe. And so I had players, you know, becoming kind of spooks within the party and things like that. Even it just got crazy. Like There's people with like multiple iterations of themselves. They're getting like deformed and changing and altering in class, and just all sorts happened. And crazy things happened. Also, the corruption rules as well. The corruption rules file you should get hold of. The Gothic-inspired agitations list, Ravenloft tables. I wrote up a whole like Second Forest travel plan. The file was called, and stuff. Yeah. So then, regards running it, there's a hell of a lot of work to do. And I'd say, yeah, you want to read the book pretty extensively to the point where you don't have to take time out to check any answers to anything. If you're asked, you can pretty much just come up with the answer. And what's going to help you more on top of that is if you can make notes in the book. Don't get precious about the book, basically, is what I'm saying. If you've got the physical book, which I prefer, because I like making notes directly, underlining things, highlighting things. This is a huge part of my game plan. Writing in the margins, have like arrows drawn looking at things, and that's perfect for me. Yeah, I'd go as far as if I had the PDF, I'd print it out just so I can do that. I had a lot of sticky post-it notes and stuck those into the pages with encounter things on. I had like whole like character sheet things for extra add-on NPCs, and that was all stuck into the book. Extra leaves of things that were like temporarily glued in using post-it notes to half glue the page onto the page, the extra add-on page, and I'd pull that out and that'd be an encounter that suddenly sets off there, and it's all in front of me. It's like all the work I've done in advance is there. Yeah, I looked at Curse of Strahd Reloaded as well. That was another one by Dragna Carter. So you can look that up, and there's chapters and chapters of that. You should try looking that up. I made use of. I mean, I looked at a bunch of other things. I didn't necessarily use them all. So like the one-page woes and things like that I looked at, but it wasn't necessarily something that I could use completely in that setting. But it was just, you just got to regard it. It might work for you. It's like certain ones, yeah, they weren't necessarily going to work for me. Yeah, and then beyond that, you can kind of Google Curse of Strahd guides, and the kind of ones that will come up at the top are probably the best ones. And, you know, there we are. I'll see you at the table.